the recording, and then we'll go over into Q&A.
Hello everyone, welcome to Motoko Bootcamp, lecture on Internet Computer Services. Little background about myself. My name is Ritvik Paliwal. I'm founder of Internet Computer Services and I'm based out of Ottawa, Canada. In my educational career, I have done both my bachelor's and master's in computer science and software engineering. And I'm fortunate enough to have work experience for more than 12 years as a software engineer with multiple companies across the globe. My involvement with Internet Computer started in June 2021. And since then, me and my team have worked on a couple of projects. The first one we did was Boxtion. Boxtion was focused towards creating smart contract to facilitate industrial level auctions on the IC network. And since then, we have done a couple of more projects which are focused for enterprise use case. While doing all the other projects, we realized that for every project, we were going through the same pain point of writing the code and then deploying smart contracts and later on managing them on IC. And that's where we decided to create Internet Computer Services, which will not just benefit our projects, but will also benefit other projects in the community and developers to basically help them build their code, ship their code, and manage their smart contracts once they're deployed on the IC network. So as we have seen, building is much easier. You can just copy the open source GitHub code for NFTs, NFTs marketplaces, ICRC tokens, or even Bitcoin smart wallets, and then tweak that code according to you, and you're done with it. But then deployment of those code might be tricky. And DevOps can be challenging for developers, especially when working with multiple developers, managing multiple wallets and identities, environments, version tracking, and even creating build pipeline manually by yourself. Additionally, tracking canisters and release management can also add to complexity. These pain points can lead to delays and errors in the deployment process, ultimately impacting the overall efficiency and the productivity of the team. And apart from that, we have seen the DevOps cycles have changed for softwares a lot in past 2 decades. In 2000, we used to have Web 2 deployments where developers would buy their own hardware, they'll install a Linux operating system, then they'll install a web server like Apache or something, and they'll do all the management. In 2012 and 2015, between those times, we have seen companies like cPanel evolving, which would support SSH hostings and FTP file uploads. And by 2018 and 2020, we have seen more sophisticated solutions which were created by Google and other big giants in terms of managing the whole software development lifecycle, where you could horizontally scale your applications using Docker containers or Kubernetes. And now we are into 2022 and 2023, where we are facing again the same problem, but for decentralized applications, where we have to deploy upgradable smart contracts, possibly make them immutable in the future, and then handle the whole smart contract development lifecycle. Now with Web2 developers, we were fortunate enough to have companies like AWS and Google who took care of all this complex deployment procedures once the developer has written the code. And a typical Web2 developer flow looks like this. They would usually do an AWS or Google sign-in to their respective cloud providers. And after that, they do not have to do any credential management. They do not have to manage their SSH keys, which would essentially give them the access to their virtual machines or to root controllers of the Kubernetes cluster. What they'll do is they'll easily connect their GitHub repositories to AWS pipeline or Google Code pipeline. And then AWS and GCP will build code in the background. They'll internally create virtual machines and deploy the code as well. And then developers can just easily manage their applications once they're deployed through AWS and GCP dashboard managers. But what about Web3 developers? We do not have such solutions in place as of today. Developers struggles to manage multiple wallets and identities for their multiple environments like dev environment, QA environment, and staging environment. How do you deploy canisters? How do you collaborate between different developers? What if you have to host a website 100% on-chain and your single page application is too heavy? It can take some hours and your laptop cannot sustain those loads and constant connectivity to deploy things to the IC network. And the worst fear is, what if you lose your keys? What will happen to your project? And addressing all these pain points will internally incur to hire a dedicated developer or a DevOps engineer, and that will come with a cost. That's where we invented Internet Computer Services, which can give a very seamless experience what AWS and GCP gave in the Web 2 world. And Web3 developers can leverage Internet Computer Services to deploy their smart contracts in a very similar fashion. So in Internet Computer Services, we have AWS or Google sign in to authenticate with the system. And after that, you are not required to manage your wallet identities. We provide a complete custodial solutions for your identity management. In a very similar way, developers would connect their GitHub repositories to AWS code pipelines. You would connect your GitHub repositories to Internet Computer Services via GitHub Apps. ICS will in turn pulls the code from GitHub and build it for you. ICS will also create canisters and deploy code on your behalf. And once the code is deployed, ICS will track and manage your canisters in terms of cycle consumption or auto topping up your canisters, so you do not have to manually monitor it or write some cron scripts to do it. And ICS is built for both Web 2 and Web 3 developers in a way that we provide a very seamless experience which exists today. In turn, what ICS do is ICS reduces a lot of time in terms of deploying things and getting to market, and as well as saves a lot of cost in terms of hiring DevOps engineer or even creating the whole infrastructure by yourself and reinventing the wheel. A typical ICS workflow would look like this. Most of the developers would spend a lot of time on the left side of the screen, like building and writing the dApps in the favorite language you love. And later on, ICS will take care of deployment and shipping your dApp on the IC network, which hardly takes a couple of minutes for the whole process. And once the app is deployed, ICS will help you manage and monitor your dApp in terms of how it is performing. So just to summarize, what is Internet Computer Services? It's a platform which helps developer build, ship and manage dApps on the internet computer. And then there are certain features like deployment of static websites, Motoko smart contracts, management of canisters with comprehensive dashboard, cycles tracking or tracking the performance of your canisters via ICS admin dashboard itself. Let's jump into the demo. You can visit ICS by typing internetcomputerservices.com domain in your browser URL. Once you're on the landing page, we'd strongly recommend you to join our Discord channel by clicking the Discord link here. And you can give us any improvement feedbacks or even some feature request if you have, or you can just contact us in case you are having any trouble with the platform. We also recommend you to follow us on Twitter to stay updated with our feature announcement and upcoming updates. We have a dedicated docs link here where you can see a step-by-step instructions of either deploying a static website or Motoko smart contract or even doing canister management. We have also attached some screenshots in case you need them for later reference. Now let's go to dashboard by clicking the dashboard button here. You can log in with any of your Google account. Once you're logged into the platform, you'll be presented with a dashboard here. Now, since I have used this dashboard to already manage a couple of dApps which I have deployed in the past, we'll see some pre-deployed dApps here. But in case you're signing up or signing in for the first time, you'll be seeing a 2 trillion cycle balance which will be allocated to your account here. And you're getting this 2 trillion cycles for free just to play around with ICS and IC in general. And you can use this balance either to deploy your personal websites, your commercial websites, or even your Motoko smart contracts, or just to play around with the system. Let's try to create a dApp here and deploy a static website. We can do that by clicking Create dApp button here and then clicking Static Website. This will bring me to a page where it will show all the GitHub repositories which I have connected to this account. Now, in case I do not see any particular repository which I wanted to deploy, I can click Configure Account from here, which will take me to a GitHub workflow. and then I would be asked to select specific repositories to which I wanted to give access. Now if I want to give access to all my repositories, I'll just select all repositories here. We'll click Save button. GitHub will again redirect us to Internet Computer Services dashboard, and we should be able to see all the repositories pertaining to that account here now. Now in case if I had to deploy from a public repository, I do not have to go through the flow of linking a GitHub account. One can directly use any public GitHub URL to deploy code from there. But since right now I'm deploying a static website and which will be my personal resume, I would basically use a connected GitHub flow. Now I'll select a private repository in which I have a template code of a static website, which is just a resume website, and I would like to deploy that to IC network so that my static website can reside 100% on chain. I can give website a name for resume 2023. I'll have to select a branch. If it is a React.js application or AngularJS or Vue.js, whatever, you can give a optional command to install the dependencies and build the code as well. And once the webpack is generated, you can optionally specify a build directory where our artifacts will reside, and ICS will basically then use that particular build directory to take the code to take your HTML, CSS, and assets file and will deploy it to IC network. But for now, since my repository is a simple HTML, CSS website, I'll not put in any build commands and I'll just click the deploy button here. Now what this will do is it will ask IC to create some canisters on the IC network on behalf of this particular deployment. And then ICS will in background create those canisters, will install the asset canisters from dfx command line, and will start uploading assets from this particular code repository to the IC network. This might take a minute or two, but I have deployed some websites in the past and we can see how a deployment looks. So this was a deployment which I did before this demo, and I can see once the website was deployed, I'm presented with a unique canister URL against this deployment, and if I click this particular URL, it will start loading a service worker on the IC network and will render my website. And you can see this website is completely rendered off the IC network. With just few simple clicks, we have deployed a static website on the IC network without any management of DFX identities, procuring ICPs from any centralized exchanges, or writing even a single piece of code apart from your static website for sure. Let's say in case you just want to update some of the details related to this deployment, you can click the settings button where you can optionally change the name of your deployment, or even you can put in some custom commands in case you decided to make your static website a single page application in React.js or AngularJS. Now let's see a deployment of a Motoko smart contract. So instead of deploying a new Motoko smart contract from scratch, which I can easily do it from here, if I just click a create dApp button and then Motoko smart contract, the flow is very similar. I'll have to select a Motoko smart contract repository. If I check this repository, I'll just select the branch, it will build the code and deploy it. But since I've already deployed it, we can easily see what happened during the deployment of this particular smart contract. And by the way, our personal website for Resume 2023 is now deployed. So if you come here, you'll click this link, it's a new canister URL, and you'll see our creative resume there as well. Coming back to our Motoko smart contract. So as we can see in our previous deployment from here, give it a minute to load. All right. So if I check this UBC calculator deployment here, what I can see is I did one deployment previously, the deployment went through, it got deployed here. Since it's not a website, it's not a URL which we can publicly see, but we can anyway see it from the Candid UI. But before that, I wanted to show you this particular repository on GitHub. So Internet Computer Services and that particular repository, I believe it's an open repository. You guys can also test it. And here is our backend Motoko smart contract code. And if you see in our Motoko smart contract code, we expose certain interfaces like add, subtract, multiplication, and division. And we have done deployment of this particular code using Internet Computer Services. Now, ICE actually created this particular canister and deployed code inside this. And we can easily explore this by clicking this magnifying glass button here, which will redirect us to Candid UI just to explore the interface of our canister or the code which is deployed inside it. So now we see the interface exactly match what was deployed, which is exactly same in our code as well. Now apart from that, if we have to see some of the canister details, like how this canister has been performing, what is inside it, we can easily click this edit button here and we'll be redirected to a canister detail page. Now from here you'll see there are certain cycles allocated to this canister at this moment. The canister is in running state, and this is the module hash of the code which we have deployed here. So if you do dfx build here and check out the module hash, it will be exactly same as what is deployed on the IC network, and that's what you'll see from here as well. And then there is a log of what is happening with your canisters. So we continuously monitor the canister every 24 hours, and we see how many cycles are remaining, what was the module hash, and what was the state of the canisters. Now in case you feel that this canister is going below certain threshold cycles, what you can do is you can easily add more cycles to this particular canister. And once you add more cycles, this particular, let's say if we want to add 100 billion more cycles to this particular canister, and if I click top up button here, it will detect these cycles from here and it will put the cycles in your canister itself, which is internally deployed on the IC network. So far is a managed DevOps flow, but let's say if you want to create a canister by yourself which does not have any code inside it or something, you can do it manually by clicking create new canister button here, and then you can enter any name of your choice. I have already created a test canister here with no code inside it, so I'll not recreate it again. But we can see by clicking that canister here and visiting the canister detail page, we see there is no module hash installed here. The canister is freshly topped up with 0.2 trillions of cycle, and even if we go to Candid UI, we'll not be able to explore any code because we haven't deployed anything inside it. Candid UI also crashed. No worries. But what we can do is we can either start or stop the canister here, just in case you just want to play around with it. You do not want to waste cycles because if a canister is running on the IC network, it will consume some of your cycles. So you can keep it in stopped state. Whenever you want to play around with it, you can come again to the screen and click run button. It will again bring it from stopped state to a running state. And then what we can do is we can install a wasm file in it. Now this wasm file can easily be obtained by building a code locally, or even by getting these wasm files from your friends or other developers in the community who would have pre-built it or pre-built some of the code already written. Once I click this install wasm button, I can choose that wasm file. I already have a calculator backend wasm file here. Since it's a first time install, it will only give me the install mode. It will not give me the reinstall or the upgrade mode. But I can click the install button to install this particular wasm file inside this empty canister. Now this installation will consume some of your cycles. So we should see some cycle depletion here. It's not updated automatically, so we'll just click the refresh button here, which will get the fresh status from the IC network. And we see some cycles got depleted while deploying the code, and the module hash has also changed. And the same we can verify by going to the Candid UI again, and this time we should see some of the interfaces which we have previously seen in our code base. That's it for the demo today. I'll open the forum for questions and answers. Thank you so much. Hello everyone.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Ritvik. That was awesome demo. So yeah, well, now we're open for some questions, but before that, I just want to say, thank you for taking the time. Thank you for coming to present today. And for those listening, this is a project, the kind of project you really want to get involved with early. They're looking for feedback. They're looking for early users. And I kind of heard through the grapevine that you're even going to be having some stuff upcoming for those who start building the early showcase of things deployed with ICS. So yeah, for our students out there who are getting newly involved in the ecosystem, I think this is definitely one of the things you want to get early involved with as soon as possible. All right, so we have a few questions here. One of them is from another dev mentor and previous Matoka Bootcamp student, Lucas Vazda. So let's see. It was marked as answered. Oh yeah, Ritvik, you've already answered that one. So the question was, will they be able to deploy a full stack app, back and front end canister together? And the answer was, for now, it just supports deployments separately. Deployment of full stack, it's not supported yet, but it's being actively worked on. That's great. Our anonymous attendee asked, what is the cost of making use of the solution?
Yes, ICS free to use as of today, and we plan to keep it free forever for individuals and smaller teams.
Yeah, exactly. And I've logged in, and I noticed that there was already some cycles in my account when I first logged in. So it looks like you even get some starter cycles, which is enough to deploy a few canisters. So that's really cool.
Yeah, and if any of the users or the developers would want more cycles as of today, feel free to contact any of the admins in the Discord channel. We'll top up your account with the cycles which is needed. And soon we are working on an integrated payment flow where you'll be able to buy cycles directly from your credit cards or debit cards. So you do not have to procure ICPs by yourself from a centralized exchange or getting KYC there.
Awesome. I didn't know that. That's really cool. All right. Any other questions? You can enter it in the Q&A, and you can also go ahead and raise your hand and we can give you the ability to speak. Yeah, actually, I have a question. So Ritvik, tell me a little bit about like how you got started with the project, because I think we saw it first in was it a Supernova hackathon?
Yeah, so before Supernova Hackathon, as I mentioned in my presentation, we were involved in some of the enterprise projects where we are trying to solve enterprise-related use cases on the IC network.
Hmm.
But as in me and my team basically went in and started creating multiple proof of concepts and MVPs. We found the same problem, which we were repeating certain actions with every project. And that's where we decided to come up with Internet Computer Services. And we are fortunate enough, Supernova Hackathon was around the corner. So within 15 days, we were able to do a proof of concept for the whole solution which we have created as of today. But if you guys are interested, you can check the dev post link. We were 5th ranked in the Blue Sky track category as well. And that's where we got our validation. And since then, we have been actively working on adding more features to the product so it can provide an end-to-end comprehensive solution for the developers in the community.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, when Seb and I were planning this event, we thought we were planning a challenge for students to get into the boot camp. We were thinking about using Internet Computer Services, but we couldn't because it made it too easy. They wouldn't have to do as much. They wouldn't have to learn how to use all the different components. And part of the entry challenge was to kind of push them a little bit. And you streamlined it so much that you almost made it too easy. But when it comes to like normal deployment, I think it's going to be huge for beginners, because I think a lot of them had tons of headaches getting started with those pain points you mentioned, and now they can go ahead and do that without having to worry about it. They can easily deploy anything they need.
Yeah, and that's the same vision we have at ICS as well. We want to make things as simple as for developers to one-click deploy their static websites or Motoko smart contracts. And later on, once individual developers will be forming smaller teams or even mid-sized teams, we want to make collaboration between developers easier as well, where multiple developers are writing code and committing to GitHub repositories, but the whole deployment is taken care by ICS. So there are no overlapping deployments, no lose of keys on a local laptop, and there is not any single dependency on a single developer within a team.
Awesome. And how do you pull that off now, like with the connection to GitHub? Because I haven't seen any external connection work quite the same way on other dApps.
Yeah, so right now we are using the GitHub app action flow. So GitHub has created a separate workflow where users do not have to give their personal access tokens to ICS in order to fetch the code. What they do is they authorize a GitHub app to fetch the code, and that's too for a very limited time. So it works in a very similar way how OAuth authentication would work, the way you log into third-party websites using Google sign-in or Facebook sign-in. So that's the very similar technology stack or the workflow what GitHub has given, and we have integrated that workflow in ICS as well. So developers can be secured in that manner that they are not sharing something personally identifiable, and we do not have access to anything unless until they give explicit access to certain repositories and actions.
Awesome. Yeah, and we need these kind of professional tools for the ecosystem where you have a team, and each time they update the GitHub, everything just happens to make it flow. Cool. So any other questions from the audience here? Feel free to raise your hand or enter in the Q&A. We'll give you a couple minutes to. All right. Well, it looks like everything was really clear in the demo, so nobody has any questions. I'm gonna say going once, going twice. All right. Well, with that, I think we'll wrap up this presentation here, and I hope everyone has a great day coding Motoko. I know we're getting close to the end here with the deadline for the course project submission. So I wish you luck. Reach out and be active in a Discord to get support. And thank you so much, Vidvik, for making the time to be here today.
Thank you, Isaac, and thanks to the whole Coded State team to organize this bootcamp and giving us the opportunity to present our demo. Thank you so much.
Awesome.